So this is an informative video, as fast as I know how, about the nitty-gritty of fishing in Alaska as a first-time or non-resident. Everything I wished I had known about how I should have been approaching Alaska, all brought together in one place. If you fish in Alaska, you will be successful. The goal here today is to make you more successful faster. I wished I could have found a video like this or all this information kind of brought together, and I would have caught more fish much quicker. So how to know where to go, how to know if it's legal, and how are you going to get there? That was kind of the intuitive way that I approached it. We're going to invert this. You will be more successful a whole lot quicker if you approach it from how are you going to get there, the legality, let's call it the regulations involved, and then where are you going to go? And you'll see what I mean pretty quickly here. Makes much more sense. So going off of that, starting with how you're going to get there, that'll be determined by your circumstance and your situation. But that's going to determine, the geographic area that you have available to you, and thus is going to determine the regulations, and based on that is also going to determine where you should go. Grab the best deal on a rental car you can and hit the hills. Alaska's website is pretty difficult to navigate. I'm not going to say it's bad, but you'll get caught in all these loops, and without spending too much time on that, it's a typical government website. You're going to want to be in the sport fishing regulations, and so we'll put any relevant links down below. Once you've decided your target area, that's whatever's available to you, and if it's very large, you're going to have a lot of homework, but that makes it even funner. You take your target area and go down to the smallest granular part of the regulations and work your way up. And a lot of times you'll see, well, I can't do this, can't do that. I guess I don't really want to be there. So the regs, you can weed out a lot of places you don't want to be, and you can inadvertently find some places you might want to be. So on the sport fishing regulations is where you're going to want to be on the website. Tip here, the reason we're here is you're going to want to go into whichever region you're on, and you're going to want to put this on your phone. Alaska has such few accessible areas that the laws can be so specific. The most successful way that I found to approach this was look at your exact position on a given body of water, then look at the time of year, then look at the body of water itself, then look at the drainage system that it's in, and then the region. So we'll do one quick example. Take the Kenai River, for instance. The Kenai River is going to be broken up into the upper Kenai, the lower Kenai, and Kenai tributaries. So it starts off general regulations for the lower Kenai. So this does not apply to a whole lot of the Kenai River. What does it apply to? They give you a little map here. So now you see where the map thing comes in, and this is just all across Alaska. Right down to the river mile you're on, the regulations change. So what you see on the surface is typically what we or most people would just kind of peruse through really quickly. Okay, see what the lower Kenai is all about. The inclusive waters that it includes. Oh, here's the king salmon, all that stuff. Well, pretty much what you just want to go ahead and jump to real fast that I think is a lot more successful is to go right down into the special regulations of every given part of the regulations that you're going to look at. So in this case, it's the lower Kenai. Go to the special regulations, because this is what dictates the regulations on that exact part of the body of water that you're on. Again, yeah, it's not romantic stuff, but this is what fishing in Alaska, being successful quickly, is all about. Because otherwise it's daunting, and how do you know? This is how you know. So go to the special regulations section, and you can see like a map. And so they do it alphabetically. You can see the river mile here. So confluences are typically protected. I've just inherently learned that. So if I'm fishing somewhere and I see a confluence, that's where a good fisherman should be anyways. I go straight to these special regulations. So that's a big tip. Just fast forward to the special regulations, work your way backwards from there. For a quick example, let's just go with the alphabetical G here. And you can see this little hatched off area, which means no fishing, but that's a confluence. Well, this is where, as a fisherman, if I was rolling down the Sterling Highway here, my eyeball's like, whoa, there's going to be fish there. And the regs know it too. So right here, if this is a protected area, okay, this is a drainage coming into the Kenai River, the lower Kenai River here. if they are protecting that area, that means that there are going to be a lot of salmon confluencing right there, a lot. And they consider it essentially just way too much harassment, due to combat fishing. Get everybody off, because the salmon are going to stall out there while they're kind of going to do, call it what you want. They hang out there, and eventually all of a sudden they go. And they go up in pods, but they can hang out there sometimes for a day or two, then sometimes for just a few hours. So G here is protected. So that's just fast forward through the special regulations right to G. Moose River confluence area. So 100 yards downstream, 100 yards upstream, close to sport fishing from boats, only one unbaited single hook artificial fly lure is allowed. So I'll be darned, we can fish there. So if I was a fisherman, I'm like, hey, I'm fly fishing. That's all I do anyway. I'm good. So I'm probably going to hit that. So the fact that they would put some special regulations to kind of limit your potential harassment, let's say with a motorized boat, that means that some fish really tend to confluence there in a given salmon run. In this case, it could be sockeye, but it could be silver. We'll get to that later. So that's an example of where it pays just to go right all the way to the bottom, get to the special regulations, then work our way back up. So let's scroll up here and get to the general, the lower Kenai River. We'll get up here and decide, okay, so if I happen to catch a silver salmon coho between December 1st and June 30th, I can't keep it. All right, well, I'm not in that window, so I'm fine. What window am I in? So hence, exact point on that body of water, then time of year, then body of water, then region. It's just so much faster if you work backwards, but that's not the way it's written, and intuitively, it's not the way you approach it. So it's probably the biggest tip out of this video. Go straight to these special regulations, find out all kinds of stuff, and just think about it. It's going to help you find fish. Leads us to the next tip. We'll put it down below. Learn your salmon. And it's relatively easy. What they don't necessarily tell you is the biggest things you want to focus on. The eyes, that's too hard. I mean, they talk about, well, this is how you know it by the eye. It's too tough. Go right to the mouth. That's the best giveaway. Patterns along the back are helpful, but those can be deceptive, and they'll make it out to look a lot more bold than it does in wildlife. Don't ask me why. Go to the mouth. The mouth is going to help you get them all. And mouth and size, marks on the back, put your focus there. We'll put up a chart of them. It's just handy. Have a copy of this with you on your phone. You can probably download it right off this video. Hopefully you know what a rainbow trout looks like, but I will spend a little bit of time in case you're in the Southeast on the cutthroat. Alaska is very simple. Read it for yourself. If it has a slash, it doesn't matter if it's a cut bow, which you're probably going to be catching a lot of cut bows. If it has a slash across the gills, it's a cutthroat trout. They're not quite as regulated sometimes as the rainbows are. Why are the rainbows so regulated in Alaska? Without getting into it too much, it's pretty much to protect the steelhead. So in some drainages, they'll say has to be greater than 20 or 24 inches. Then they know it's a mature steelhead. In some cases, they want to protect the mature steelhead, but depending on the time of year, they'll allow trout under 16 inches because they know that's not going to be a steelhead. So rainbow, I should say. So knowing your species on the salmon is probably good, because that can get pretty sticky when it comes to a king. You're going to want to know a king, but it gets a little bit sticky when it comes to your possession limit, because you can keep a lot of the pinks, you can keep a lot of the silvers. Probably the only one you're going to have a hard time keeping straight are the silvers and the sockeyes. If they happen to be running together and you just don't happen to have a chart, go to the mouth. It's dead giveaway. Now, last thing I'll say on regulations is not necessarily this case in the hunting, but when it comes to fishing, Alaska is very good about not having any freebies that inadvertently turn to be gotchas. So in the lower 48, some of you may be familiar with this, there's a lot of things that are free. but you are absolutely required to have them either on your person. Sometimes it's a HIP certification. Sometimes it's some little endorsement that is absolutely free, but they want you or maybe don't want you. I don't really care. You're just supposed to know that you're smart enough that you have to ask for it because they won't give it to you. So you go get your license, you think you're good, and turns out there was this little freebie that you have to have. It's in the regs that you have to have it. Sometimes it's not very clear, but unless you ask for it, they won't give it to you. Fortunately, Alaska doesn't have any of that when it comes to fishing. The only possible exception to this is going to be your harvest, your written harvest record log, and that's only for certain species, things like kings. So just be aware of that if you're going after king salmon, and some of the sea things, depending on the area, could be halibut. You're going to have a written record that they furnish. It's their written record on a certain piece of paper the way they want it. So you're going to have to print that off and carry it with you and just keep that. And then you'll ultimately report it at the end of the fishing year. But most of the stuff that we're talking about today, that doesn't apply to. On the licensing, it's you can get a 1 day, you can get a 5 day, 14 day, you can get a year, whatever suits you best, but you can just buy it, get it right onto your phone. You don't really need a lot to do it. So they are great about that. So where to go? Once you look at your area and you look at those regs, I kind of peruse those regs and look for, it's as far as detail goes, it's a terrible map. But the fact that they're regulating these things mean that, the fishing in them's typically pretty viable. It's not always the case, but it's a pretty good giveaway. And so I look at confluences and look at accessibility. So you're going to want, this tip would be, find the least accessible area that you are willing to do. So the more inaccessible to most people, the better. So maybe this would be an 800-yard walk, or maybe it would even be up to a mile. Now, this can bite you in the butt, but if you're into it for the reasons that I'm into it, I derive a great deal of satisfaction out of the exploration. And I mean, what's the worst case scenario? You walked a mile in Alaska. The next tip I would give in this area is to stay away from the internet suggested locations. So if you see anything that has a lot of hype on go here, don't do it. If you have no choice, I'm going to do it. It's better than nothing, but sometimes it can be a little bit disheartening if you think you're going to be out there fishing in nature and it winds up being, some type of combat fishing, sometimes even like in downtown Anchorage. So while those places are very popular, that has nothing to do with success. It's actually about accessibility. What you're reading is, this is really good because it's accessible. Of course, they're not going to say that. They're going to talk about how much success they had. Well, why were they? They were there not for the success. They were there for the accessibility 99% of the time. So take an entire region, look up north. If you're going to drive an hour, you're going to do well. Let's say an hour outside of Anchorage. Just look at your directions, look at your options. The other thing is to think about all the other species. I am just as happy catching anything that's edible as I am anything that's edible. So if it's a trout or a grayling instead of a salmon, yes, I'm happy. Of course, if there's salmon in them right beside, I'm going to try and get the biggest one I can get. I'm going to go for those salmon because, it's a salmon. But don't ignore the salmon or the trout or the grayling. So you may be in an area that doesn't have, the right kind of salmon that maybe an Alaskan native would tell you should be going after. So let's say they're pinks or they're chums. I'm still going to go get them, and I frankly think they're delicious. Don't write off little areas, little creeks, little drainages, little lakes just because there's not necessarily any salmon or you don't hear people talking about them. Because anything you really hear about or recommendations you look for, it's natural to go, hey man, I'm right here. Where can I go? Yeah, that's a natural instinct. Just think about it. But you're not going to hear about maybe chum salmon. You're probably not going to hear anything really about pink salmon. You're probably not going to hear anything about trout or grayling in Alaska. And that's a great reason to go. If you can fly fish, you're going to catch them hand over fist. And I mean really fly fish, not, just throw a big long slug into the water. Sight fishing is going to be the most productive. Best overall tip I can give you as far as where to go is if you don't see them and you don't find them relatively quickly, move on. Go try another spot. Sight fishing is best when you're new to an area and you don't know what you're doing, unless you have some intel that suggests otherwise, like a muddied out, salmon fishing spot, and you've got some good intel. Just go by sight. If you don't see them, move on. If you see them, work on them. Sometimes sight fishing is so much more productive, be it trout or salmon, because you can put that fly or that lure casting 10 times, different ways. And then all of a sudden, sometimes even the same way, that time it just either pisses him off or it trips his trigger, and then you got him. So sight fishing is definitely something to focus on once you do all your math and you give it your best try and you get to where you think you're going to be. And if it turns out you were wrong, admit it quickly and just move on. Don't just keep beating a dead horse. And plus, you'll get to see more country. Last tip on where to go. It would be using the fish count on the Alaskan website. So if you have internet service, so if you haven't kind of put this all together, before I would run out there, I'd do somewhere between 15 minutes and an hour's worth of homework to work through that thing in the order that I just laid out. And now you see why we did it in that order. So what we're wrapping up here with is, once you've decided where you can go and you've looked at those regulations and you got them there right in front of you and you've got these exact names of rivers. Okay. So now we're going to go into the, Alaska Fish and Game fish count website. So we'll put a link to it down below. For whatever reason, sometimes this is hard to find. You can only really find it through Google. Sometimes it's very difficult to find on their website. So here we are in the fish counts. It's a little bit deceptive because it lists these 20 here. These are the top 20 recent searches. So you're going to want to go up into here and pick a location. So let's just say where we were back there. You know what? Let's do the Russian River. So this would be actually regulated in the Upper Kenai section of those examples. So this is a big tourist trap. I've been there and it's pretty cool, but I mean, it's combat fishing and you're competing with a lot of bears and people. Pick a year. You can do most recent and then maybe the year before and the year before that if there's an anomaly, but let's just go with the sockeye. There's an early and a late run. So see, here you go. You're already learning something. You're like, well, wait, there's an early run, there's a late run. So how do you know? Well, guess what? Product of elimination. We'll pick the early one and we'll hit submit. So here's the Russian River sockeye early run. So you can see it's peaking, essentially looks like about the 3rd week of June. So it's pretty much June. Is where it's across. So there was a big spike last year, which was over 3,000 fish per day coming past the counter. And that's pretty significant. So, but you can see, oh, well, I'm here on the 16th. Okay, 1,000 fish per day going past the counter. Now on the Russian River, because it is accessible, you're going to have some competition. If you happen to go there, and this is as specific as I'm going to get on tips, do a walking. Do quite a bit of walking and you'll do good. So, this would tell you when they're running. So see, by approaching it this way, suddenly it's really not all that daunting. And we probably only spent about 15 minutes on this video. And you can see that if you just literally had a few hours and you're within reach of some area, by walking it through in these steps, you can have the confidence to know you're legal, get your stuff, grab your rod, out of your bags and just get a rental car or a bike. And here's what's cool. A lot of times you can literally walk from a lot of the airports in Alaska and catch something. This fish counter is really an incredibly helpful tool, not just for salmon. It's going to give you an indication of an ecosystem that is happening there and how big that ecosystem is, how many, because of the dead carcasses, how much nutrients and nitrogen is getting put back into that river system. And that will directly affect everything from Dolly Varden rainbows and grayling, all kinds of stuff. So tip on using this that I literally used it several times before figuring out, obviously, don't go by this top 20 recent searches. What is the value of this though? That tells you where everybody else is looking. So what if you're in an area and you've got access to a river in here that you're not seeing on the top 20? Well, if it's got good numbers, in my mind, of course, that's going to mean it's probably not quite as accessible, but that's going to lift itself up in my priority a little bit because people aren't necessarily looking there. They're not really too concerned about the fish numbers in it. But if those fish numbers happen to be, pretty high, then that might draw your attention a little bit. Last thing on this is pay attention to this over here. This is kind of a neat tool. This is harvest per effort. Which is a neat metric. I won't break it down too much. If you're really that interested, you can look it up yourself. But this is another area. So you can do the Ketchikan area, the Juneau area, Yucatan, and it's pretty neat how that works. But it's a harvest for effort, and you can find places with a really high harvest, per effort versus the low. It's kind of another tool that you can play around with that. So this right here, we'll put that down below too. Even if you just have a few hours, you can get your license, put all this stuff on your phone. And in this way, if I had a few hours, it's like, well, I don't know anything about this area. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to be able to go out there and know where stuff's at or what I'm doing. Well, you may not, but at least this way you'll have a lot of confidence to know that you're not only legal, but have a pretty good idea of the names, rivers, places, everything, and you have it all on your phone, and it's called GPS. And point is, don't ever go to Alaska without your stuff. Now, if you're one of those people that aren't really good at, looking at maps and GPS and knowing exactly where you are in a geographic area and everything, that's fine. Just get good at it.